The Israeli Armed Forces says it targeted Hezbollah terror targets in about a dozen different areas of southern Lebanon, including weapons storage facilities, military structures, and a launcher used to carry out attacks on northern Israel. Israel adding that it did eliminate more than 50 terrorists over the past 24 hours in Rafah. In the meantime, I do want to take you to some video here. The USS Abraham Lincoln aircraft carrier actually arriving along with other U.S. destroyers in the Middle East. Take a look at your screen here. In a statement, U.S. Central Command confirmed the arrival as the Lincoln is there to replace the USS Theodore Roosevelt. U.S. Defense Secretary Lloyd Austin ordering the Lincoln to speed up to get to the region faster as threats of a major Iranian attack on Israel still loom. Do want to talk more about all of the latest developments, so let's bring in Josh Hasten, a Middle East correspondent for the Jewish News Syndicate. As always, Josh, thank you so much for taking the time to be here with us today.
Thanks so much, Josh.
All right, so first off, I do want to talk about the Hezbollah targets over there in Lebanon. How significant is that? Because it appears that the situation is once again intensifying with the attacks by Hezbollah on Israel.
Yeah, absolutely. From what I saw this morning, Israel attacked at least 10 different targets throughout Lebanon. We're talking about weapons storage facilities, trying to incapacitate Hezbollah's ability to fire rockets. That being said, it is known that Hezbollah has over 100,000 rockets, and they have not been afraid to use many of those weapons over the last 8-9 months since the October 7th attack. So the situation very tense on the northern border. And what we're seeing now is we're seeing Hezbollah firing more rockets at one time. In other words, where they used to fire maybe 5-10 rockets, this past week, we've seen different attacks, salvos of rockets coming in. We're talking about 40-50 rockets at once. A lot of them are actually hitting in the central and southern Golan. So they're moving a little bit further southern, a little bit further south there in Israel. So there definitely is a major concern. You have to remember 80,000 Israelis are not currently in their homes who live along the northern border. The situation is not sustainable. We'll have to see what happens in the days and weeks ahead.
I want to pop up this video that I brought you a bit earlier here. This was actually released by CENTCOM in the U.S. And we know that the USS Abraham Lincoln aircraft carrier and those other destroyers did arrive in the Middle East. So does it make the people of Israel feel any safer, better protected from an Iranian attack?
So first things first, we definitely value the friendship that we have, the unbreakable bond between the United States and the state of Israel. And it is somewhat reassuring to see these different major military vessels heading over this way. That being said, I really hope that these vessels are here to help Israel in targeting Iran, if that's necessary, if Iran launches a strike, or perhaps Israel will preempt a strike. I hope they're not here to send the wrong message to Israel, and that is, well, since we've done so much, I'm talking about the Biden administration, therefore Israel should not either retaliate or take the initiative of launching a strike if that is necessary. We've been waiting now for several weeks. Iran continues. As of Sunday night, the Iranian foreign minister said that Iran would in fact respond militarily when the time they saw fit was. So we're anticipating it could happen at any minute. I really hope that the Biden administration is fully on board on this, as they were in April. Let's give credit where credit is due in terms of shooting down over 300 rockets, missiles, and drones, which were launched at the state of Israel by Iran. So it has happened before. It can happen again. And let's hope that the administration is doing the right thing by bringing these ships to this region in order to help Israel defend itself if necessary.
It's been several weeks since that assassination of Ismail Haniyeh, the leader of Hamas, which Israel has not taken responsibility for in any way, but Iran did come out immediately and say that they would launch a major attack in retaliation against Israel. As more time passes, does it become less likely that an attack will happen, or is it still kind of imminent?
I think at this point it's imminent. You never know when it's going to happen, but it's always really in the back of your minds. The Iranians are playing psychological warfare with the state of Israel right now. Different threats and different rumors have come about over the last 2 weeks. So it's going to happen tonight. It's going to happen tomorrow. All since different rumors on social media or whatnot. So we have to really, I always say, you have to listen to what your enemies are saying. In Iran, as I mentioned, the foreign minister did say they will attack. The question is when. So I don't think that the threat diminishes in any way as time goes by. The threat is still there. Iran has a ballistic missiles program. And of course, the ultimate threat is their nuclear program, which they're continuing to develop at a rapid pace. That is the biggest existential threat to the state of Israel, and not only to Israel, but to the Western world. They call Israel the little Satan. They call the United States the big Satan. It's very, very important to remember, this is not just about Israel. It's not just about the Middle East. It is about the safety of humanity. It's about the safety of the United States and the Western world. It's something we have to keep in mind.
Want to talk a little bit about a conversation that President Biden did have with Netanyahu once again yesterday. The White House did send out basically a report kind of summarizing the call. I know you looked over that report. Anything that stood out to you, or is it essentially just kind of more of the same of what we've seen over the past several months, those calls between Biden and Netanyahu?
So the report itself, what I saw released by the White House, is more of the same in terms of the United States saying it is committed to defending the state of Israel. But behind the scenes, I've talked to other people who are in the know and whatnot, that they say actually that the Biden administration is trying to put more pressure on the Netanyahu administration in terms of specifics in Gaza. They want to get a deal done, a hostage deal, an exchange for terrorists who are serving, who carried out the horrible October 7th massacre. But the Israeli government and Netanyahu have been absolutely clear. Israel must maintain a presence in southern Gaza. I'm talking about the Gaza-Egypt border, the Philadelphia corridor, as it's known. You're talking about an 8-9 mile wide area there, which is safeguarding, preventing more of the weapon smuggling coming from Egypt to Gaza, which we've seen. Israel last week destroyed 50 tunnels. I think a total of 150 tunnels coming from Egypt into Gaza. We can't have that continue. And also, there's another corridor called the Netzarim corridor, which is in central Gaza. And the Prime Minister, Netanyahu, he has made it clear that we cannot allow weapons from southern Gaza move up into northern Gaza, perhaps originating in Egypt, but that cannot happen. So right now, the Netanyahu government is saying, yes, of course, we want a ceasefire. We want the hostages to be returned to us. But that being said, we cannot take these measures. We cannot evacuate from these areas, which will lead to a serious threat, security threat to the state of Israel. That can't happen. We have to maintain an Israeli presence in those areas.
Is it even possible for a deal to be reached as the talks do continue over in Cairo? We know that Hamas has said it rejects the deal that was put forward. According to Secretary of State Antony Blinken, Israel, for the most part, has said we're okay with the basically deal that is put before us. So is it even possible for a deal to be reached between Israel and Hamas as they do meet again over in Cairo?
I think it'll be very difficult because, number one, as you mentioned, Hamas rejected every deal until now, and Hamas continues to change the terms of the deal as we carry on. So they're certainly playing games here. And, you know, with Hamas doing what they're doing, and let's remember, they are a terrorist organization. Just last Sunday in Tel Aviv, Hamas took responsibility for a failed suicide bombing attempt in the midst of negotiations. So this shows you exactly who they are, where they are, what they're about. They cannot be trusted as far as you can throw them. So Hamas, you know, negotiating with them, will it lead to anything meaningful? I think it's very unlikely. I think all parties have optimism, but yet in the back of their minds, they know who we're dealing with here. They know we're dealing with a barbaric terrorist organization who carried out the October 7th massacre, who tried another suicide bombing for the first time in a while in Tel Aviv this past Sunday. So we can't count on them in any way, shape, or form. And yeah, of course, we want the hostages back, but it looks like Israel's going to have to do it militarily. And I do not have high hopes for these negotiations.
My last question here before I let you go. We have been covering extensively the Democratic National Convention over in Chicago, and pretty much on a daily basis here, we have seen some very intense protests that are Gaza war protests. But I do want to ask, is that concerning to Israel to see this many protesters here who are outside of the DNC protesting against Israel and just kind of making their voices heard? Is that concerning about the U.S.-Israel relationship when Israel takes a look at that?
I don't think it's too concerning. This is a fringe element. We know that the vast majority of the American people side with the state of Israel. That is absolutely certain. There's no doubt in my mind about that. And if you look at these protesters outside the DNC, if you saw what they were doing yesterday, they weren't just burning the Israeli flag, they were burning the American flag. Okay, so they are on the fringe of society in your country, in the United States, and we have to take it with a grain of salt in terms of the overall picture. We saw all of the encampments and riots taking place on college campuses, a lot of them funded by outsiders, and even reports that Iran was directly funding some of those protests. I wouldn't be surprised if Iran or another one of these extremist elements were funding those protesters outside the DNC. But these are people who, in the streets of downtown Chicago, were burning the American flag. It's not just about Israel. They're burning the American flag. And that just says a lot about who they really are.
It really does. All right, Josh Hasten, thank you so much for taking the time to join us here and kind of break down the latest developments there out of the Middle East. Anything else you want to add about any of this before I let you go?
Yeah, I'm just going to say, in terms of the Iranian threat right now, again, it's in the back of everyone's minds. But that being said, if you're not on the war front down in southern Israel, and by the way, Israel's having a lot of success right now. I just heard that we destroyed the Rafah battalion of Hamas. Defense Minister Gallant reported that late last night. So that is happening there. And if you're not on the front lines in the north, again, very, very difficult situation. But if you come to Israel now, you will see a lot of people out. It is summer. People are walking the streets of Tel Aviv, walking the streets of Jerusalem and all the other cities. And that is thanks to the brave men and women of the IDF who are keeping us safe 24/7. So I have to give a respect where it is absolutely due to those who are protecting us and are allowing us, despite all the horrible things that have happened over the last 9 months. They're allowing us to try to keep our lives as normal as possible, even with the Iranian threat and all the other threats that we have. This is a war on 7 fronts. It's not just 1, 2, or 3, 7 fronts trying to attack and eliminate the one and only Jewish state. And we will not let that happen, thanks to the brave men and women in uniform.
All right, Josh, thank you again for being here with us. We appreciate it.
Thanks so much.